Oh yeah, most definitely. I want to apologize about that. Please forgive me. I just bought this new microphone, so still working out the kinks. But again, want to appreciate y'all for joining us tonight. Always blessed to have y'all listen to the Uncommon Commentators podcast. This episode 62. Like Nick said last time we was here, we did an emergency podcast about that Luka trade with the Anthony Davis. We definitely had to. That was the first time two all NBA players were traded for each other mid-season. So it's not a stretch to say that was literally one of the craziest trades in the history of the National Basketball Association. But like my main man Wiley said on the ones and twos, blessed to have the main man Nick Andre here. He's a great everything in the sports realm, whether it's a writer, producer, technical guy. Like he does it all. If you're a fan of the Florida State Seminoles, like the WNBA, like he's everywhere. So always putting in that work. And we're blessed to have you on the platform tonight, Nick. I heard you bigging up the show, so that means a lot coming from you, and I want to tell you that. So again, thank you so much for joining us, man. And like, how's your week been so far? I know we're clocking this in Thursday evening. So how's your week been so far? You been all right?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, man. Just working a lot, man. Working on some content. We just did our recent episode of the Best Damn W show. Make sure to check that out. And besides that, man, I've just been working, man. Covering Florida State, still podcasting and stuff. So same old over here.
Of course, man. Like, hey, there's nothing to do but be productive. Again, want to apologize for those technical difficulties at the beginning of the show, but we're gonna keep it rolling like how you always do in the show business. Tonight we have a really great show for y'all. Just talking about some trades that took place. We have to cover it, of course. The NBA trade deadline occurred this afternoon at 3 p.m. on February 6th. That's 12 noon if you live on the West Coast. That was 3 p.m. if you live on the East Coast. A lot took place, some polarizing, some eventful, some beneficial for some teams, and some head-scratching moves that led some fans guessing. But of course, we're gonna peel it back and definitely address some of the big trades that we didn't get to on our emergency podcast. Even then, before we do that, Nick, obviously, this is your first time here on the Uncommon Commentators podcast with us, at least. I didn't get your reaction to the Luka and AD trade, so I would definitely like to see what you have to say about that to kick the show off. Because I know you have a lot to say about that, so I would definitely love to hear what you got to say, my man. Absolutely.
I'll be honest, like when the news first broke, like I remember Shams literally reported it like around midnight. And I'm thinking like there's no way this trade is real because we never heard any rumblings around it, especially with Luka being traded. Like you would just never picture Luka Doncic being traded from the Dallas Mavericks, like especially considering like you don't hear nothing about him being unhappy. You don't hear any rumors about him possibly heading out. So I was thinking, I was like, like, nah, like maybe this is a prank. I know it's not April Fool's, but like there's just no way that this is real. Maybe Shams that got hacked by somebody and somebody putting out some false information. So we're like, okay, I'm like, so I didn't take it serious. And then Shams put out another tweet said, no, like this is a real trade. And I'm thinking, I'm like, no way, like there's no way I can believe it. And then maybe like 10 minutes later, I got a notification from ESPN on my phone, and then it said Luka Doncic has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. And I was like, wow, like this is real. Like I'll be real, this past weekend may have been the most bizarre weekend ever in basketball. Like not even just NBA, but WNBA as well. Obviously, with all the transactions, it was just a lot going on. And then like the whole Luka trade itself was just like, man, like I needed a day to like just figure everything out because everything was just way too crazy. But just looking at it from the trade aspect, like I said, definitely didn't see this coming. The world definitely did not see this coming in. I'm still wondering why the Mavericks would trade a franchise superstar like Luka Doncic. Like I know they came out with the information saying that it was for conditioning reasons. If you ask me, I'm not buying it honestly.
Nah.
Because one thing that I'll say is, look, Luka has never really been like in the greatest shape in the world. Now, like I'm not saying that he's been out of shape or that he's fat or anything, but he's never necessarily been fit, if you ask me. But he's
Right.
still always been very productive since day one with him entering Dallas. Like he was by far the best rookie in the 2018-19 year. Even this past year, leading the Mavericks to the finals. So Luka's production has always been there. It's never like he's ever been on the decline. So when you look at it from that aspect, it's almost like they just did the Lakers a favor. And if you watch that press conference with Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison, like Jason Kidd's facial expressions just showed it all, like how he felt about the entire trade, honestly. But when you look at it from a basketball standpoint, I mean, Luka Doncic is playing next to LeBron James. Those are two elite scorers, elite playmakers. and then also give them credit because they just acquired Mark Williams in the trade as well.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, and that was one of the biggest things too, especially losing Anthony Davis, who was an elite big. It's like, how do you replace a guy like that of that caliber? But getting Mark
Right.
Williams from Charlotte was a big pickup. Obviously, he's not Anthony Davis, but he's another guy who can defend the interior and who can definitely crash the board. So I like it from that aspect. And from the Mavericks perspective, I mean, I have to say right now they have to be in win now mode. Like, it's almost like the two teams are in two different situations. Like the Lakers,
Right.
obviously, this is the twilight years of LeBron's career. So obviously, acquiring a guy like Luka Doncic is putting them in a great position
Yep.
for the future.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're Dallas now that you acquire Anthony Davis, now you have Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and now Klay Thompson. All three of them are 30 plus years old. So there's no looking ahead of the future. Like, no, you have to look at it right now per se. But I like it honestly. Anthony Davis now. I mean, and he's also expressed how he wants to be more of a foreman, and I agree with it honestly. I mean, when you look back at that 2020 title team that was in the bubble, it was Anthony Davis playing at his natural four position, and then of course him playing in the front court next to either JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard. So, you know, over the past couple of years, he's been forced to play the five, and he's done a good job at it. But you could tell like he does not necessarily prefer playing the five. He's always preferred playing the four. And now that he's in Dallas, and you're playing next to elite rim protectors like Derek Lively and Dale Gafford, who are elite rim protectors, I think now that's going to make the game a lot easier for him. So the question is, will he be the number one option for the team, or will they try to rely on Kyrie Irving? Who knows? But when like now after a couple of days of looking at both trades, I mean, it's unfortunate to see Luka leave Dallas and AD leave LA, but I think both teams are in a good position, honestly, but just both in different ways, honestly. Obviously, Dallas, they're in a position now where they have to make something happen over the next couple of years, whereas the Lakers, having a guy like Luka Doncic who is 25 years old, and many people can even say he hasn't even entered his prime yet, which is actually crazy, but
Right.
they're in a good position now for the future. So I'm excited about it for both teams.
Yeah, man. I love how you framed it. Like you could honestly say that. Like, I think for Dallas, I'm honestly excited to see how it turns out. We can't forget that Jason Kidd was an assistant coach on that Lakers bubble team that did win a championship. So they have been together before. Though had like they have had some form of camaraderie in the past. So I am excited to see how Jason Kidd will have Anthony Davis as a head coach. We know how he is about the defensive end, and we know AD has definitely looked good on defense this year, at least in my opinion. He's averaging 26 points and 12 rebounds a game right now after playing 42 games this season for the Lakers. He won't make his debut for Dallas until this weekend. There were reports that he might play tonight. He was questionable. That came from Ali LaForce of ESPN, of course. But apparently he has an abdomen injury, so he's not going to play tonight. But apparently he is supposed to play this weekend. And again, for Dallas, because of course we'll get to the Lakers in a minute. I like what Nick said. I said the same thing on our show when we did the emergency podcast. Like, it's a win now move. Like, obviously, like we know with Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, who I think will be a good backcourt. I think they'll actually form a really good scoring pair. And having Anthony Davis right there at his natural position of the 4 spot, we know he can shoot the threes. So like that really offers a really good floor space. And we know that Derek Lively, he can't really spread the floor like that. So. But I am excited to see AD next to another real center, a real 5, real 7-footer, someone that will make him comfortable down there. And yeah, like I'm excited for his future in Dallas. We'll see how long he can keep up the superstar performance. Like Nick said, they're all in their early 30s, so we'll see when Anthony does start to teeter off. Obviously, he has had injuries in the past, but he stayed in shape, and I think this trade from Los Angeles will definitely light a fire under him, and I'm excited to see what it does for him in Dallas. He has carried teams before, like when he was in New Orleans, and now obviously in Dallas, he is indeed the best player, at least in my opinion, on the floor. Of course, Kyrie's right up there with him. You can still say Kyrie's still a superstar talent. Some might say fringe superstar, this and that. But I still think Kyrie's a superstar talent, especially when fully healthy. And you also have an AD who's mentioning who's averaging the stats I just mentioned, with 26 and 12. So I think they'll both go on to form a really good tandem on the Mavericks. It just matters it really depends on what Jason Kidd does with them, like what type of offense he does decide to run. And having Klay Thompson in the corner with them, obviously, like that's going to pay dividends. And with PJ Tucker and Daniel Gafford, I'm really high on the team. Like youth wise, I do think they have to get a pick, like that future, like that next future superstar to build around. But at least for the next 2 to 3 years, this core of veterans, championship veterans, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, and Kyrie Irving all have rings. So it's a lot of good veterans in the locker room, all future Hall of Famers. So they'll all be extremely coachable for Jason Kidd. No big egos in that locker room at all. I think they'll all be extremely humble, including Kyrie, who was bouncing around here and there with the Brooklyn stuff and the Boston stuff and, all that situation. But I think in Dallas, he's finally found a home, especially buying in as the actual point guard now with Luka gone. He'll be able to run the offense even more the way he wants to. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Jason Kidd really does in Dallas. And like for Los Angeles, like Nick mentioned, I thought it was a great move for Los Angeles, to be quite honest. Like we knew that LeBron will not go on that much longer. Obviously, at 39 years old, it's getting to a point where no one really knows like how much longer he does have left. He can go on till 43 years old. I think there's teams out there that will sign a 43-year-old LeBron James. Absolutely. Like he might be able to average like 19, 8, and 7 at that time. But obviously, like that wouldn't be what we're accustomed to, but that would still be relatively good for an NBA small forward. But being realistic, I don't think LeBron's going to go on that much longer. So they did have to get the next piece of their future. And Anthony Davis being 31, I don't think he was going to be that either. I was excited to see what the AD era looked like in Los Angeles when he was the guy, like if they were going to get a point guard for him, this and that. But no, they went out and actually got a point guard for their future. So, and he's 25 years old, coming off averaging like 28 points, like 8 rebounds and like 8 assists. So he hasn't fallen off in the slightest. I know what Nick said. Obviously, I said on the emergency podcast too that there were reports of Luka ballooning up to 270 pounds. But I think when the game comes as easy to a guy as Luka with his talent, with his caliber of prowess on the offense, like I really do think that it really doesn't matter in terms of his weight. It's not like a Zion Williamson situation where his health has been an issue. He's been healthy for the Dallas Mavericks, and he's always been consistent on the floor. So in terms of the numbers that he produces. So I think for the Lakers, it's really all about him turning into a grown man in LA. I think we're actually going to see that happen. This situation has honestly been his welcome to the NBA moment. It has shown even a player of his caliber is an exclusive. Don't get me wrong. You'll rarely see a player of this magnitude ever be traded like that. Even LeBron was never traded. LeBron left teams. LeBron was never traded. Like you never saw LeBron James be traded, So with Luka, with this, I think he's just going to treat it as a new opportunity like he should. We saw him getting off the PJ, giving up the LA sign and all that. So I think he's happy to be in Los Angeles with a new fresh start.
All that was forced. That was forced. He was still trying to process everything that happened, and I felt bad seeing him trying to force that energy. I was just like, I'm sure he just wanted to get off the PJ, get to wherever he needed to get settled and just kind of get at least try and process this stuff. Because I'm like, if you look at his eyes, man, he's just like, yo, I am you can tell he was hurt. You can tell he was hurt. And
because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would lie. He did put out that press release saying that he thought he would retire Dallas Maverick. Obviously, he is a legendary Dallas Maverick. I put out on Twitter asking if people if he'll get a jersey retirement, if they'll rise 77 to the Raptors. Some thought they might not. I personally think they will. Like I said, he put up astronomical numbers while playing for the blue and white, and he took them to the finals. I get how it ended. Obviously, he was traded in the end, but we just saw Shaquille O'Neal get a jersey retirement for the Orlando Magic after years of the Magic not retiring a jersey. So I do think it can happen, most definitely, especially with a legendary player like that. And like, yeah, and I was actually about to get to you, Wiley. I like what you said about it looking forced. I like, like that was your honest perception of what you thought Luka was going through, getting off the private jet, meeting up with Jason Kidd and Rob Pelinka and all that. And that's the last thing I do want to say. I'm happy for Jason, not Jason Kidd, because he used to be the coach of them. I mean, like Luka's coach. I'm happy for JJ Redick. Obviously, he had a lot of doubters coming in this season as a young head coach. So the fact that he's had so much success with the Lakers this season, and now he has his young superstar he can build around, he can mold going into his future with the Lakers. I'm really excited for JJ Redick, most definitely, and Luka. I think, especially knowing how stern JJ is, like his personality, I think he'll definitely keep Luka in check at all times. I don't think there will ever be an issue where miscommunication will occur, and I think Luka's honored to be a Laker. But I definitely wanted your opinion on it now that we've had a couple of days to process it, Wiley. How do you think Luka will perform in Los Angeles, and how do you think this impacts his future at 25 years old with so much time left?
Yeah, he has plenty of time left, and for what he's shown us within these 7 years that he's been in the league, like he's shown us that somebody said it perfectly today. I wish I knew who, so I can give them their credit. Actually, no, it was Kevin Garnett, my favorite player, not named Michael Jordan. Kevin Garnett said Luka is more of Kobe than LeBron, and he explained it. He was pretty much like, if when it's time to go get that shot, he's willing to take it, and we've seen that when he was in Dallas. Also, shout out to Jazzy in the chat. Appreciate you pulling up. If you watched the emergency pod episode, Jazzy, I'm with you. I said they wouldn't retire his jersey, but more so, and it was just more so on the strength of how this went down. Now, change of heart could happen, but for the most, as far as from Luka's standpoint, I don't think it would they would retire his jersey. And like I said, with Anthony Davis, absolutely not, because again, you ended up being the second fiddle, for lack of better words, when and being behind LeBron the entire time, where you were supposed to be in Luka's shoes right now. They were supposed to give you the franchise and you take over. But, things didn't work out that way. Whatever drug deal we just saw happen, it happened. So, and here we are. But like with Luka, he has plenty of time to now take another franchise organization back to the promised land, and that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for him to come in and be that shining star that they've always had, whether it's been LeBron, Kobe, Magic. Like they're wanting him to walk in those footsteps and shine like always, like all the other like all those superstars for the Lakers have done. The funny part is them getting Mark Williams from Charlotte was all Anthony Davis was asking for, and they was like, you know what? Nah, we just gonna get you up out of here first, which is fucked up. But really, that's all he was asking for was, hey, can we get another center so I can be the most productive player that I can be at the 4? And unfortunately, we got this.
Right. So, yeah. Of course. No, continue.
No, I was going to say, but for the most part, I mean, it's everything from here on out. As far as the Lakers are concerned, when it comes to Luka, it's how do they build around him? If they continue to build around him and do what they've done in the past, and by building their team to be successful, if they do that, they'll be fine. The Lakers would be the Lakers. You'll get all the OG Laker fans back to chirping again, like, because right now this is more the LE. Somebody call them the LE Lakers, and not the LA Lakers.
Of
But
course.
I think once they get that team formed and getting to where they need, where they want to go for the future, they'll be fine. As far as for the present, we'll see, because of course playing next to LeBron, games are going to have to adjust. But
Mhm.
who's going to adjust to who is the question.
Yeah, honestly, you got to tip your hat to Rob Pelinka, because he's been cooking. Not even just like over this past week or so, but even all year. I mean, being able to trade D'Lo to Brooklyn, acquiring a key player like Dorian Finney-Smith, and now you bring in Luca, who him and Dorian Finney-Smith already have a history of playing together. During their time in Dallas. So
That's fine.
I'm excited about the future for the Lakers, man. It took me a while to necessarily figure out how this thing is going to fit, because like, okay, so initially when the trade went down, I was thinking like, what are the Lakers doing? Because I felt like, especially when you have a player like LeBron James, who is 40 years old and who is still playing at a very high level,
Right.
and you want to put him in position to potentially win. But as I've taken a couple of days to really think about it, I'm like, you know what? It's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, Luka's 25 years old. Like I said, clearly has shown that he is a franchise player. You know what I'm saying? Like, having elite playoff moments, being able to lead the Mavericks to the NBA Finals a year ago.
Yep.
So Luka has shown us that he is a franchise player. He's a guy that you can build around. And I think now the pressure is on the Lakers front office, Rob Pelinka, then of course Jeannie Buss and everybody, to figure out how to continue to build around him. Honestly, because I mean, it's like y'all said. I mean, he could be their next Kobe, their next Magic, or their next Shaq, or whoever it is. Honestly, now look, I mean, obviously, being the franchise player in LA wearing purple and gold does have a lot of pressure to it. But Luka has shown us that he can step up to the amount of pressure no matter what it is, honestly. So I'm excited about the future, honestly, man. I mean, Luka, he's shown us to be a really great dynamic player, and I think once LeBron does decide to step away, and retire, they're gonna hit the ground running.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Nah, I agree. And then the last thing I will say about the Lakers with Luka in his future, if I had to pick someone to pair him up with, because I like how y'all kept talking about like the rebuild and stuff like that in the future. If I had to give someone for him to get paired with, I think it'd be good to pair him with a big. Obviously, they just got Mark Williams, but we know the Lakers like to have stars, no less than stars, of course. I think Domantas Sabonis would be a really good pairing. With Luka, only because we know that Sacramento just traded De'Aaron Fox to the San Antonio Spurs. So maybe Sacramento would maybe do somewhat of a rebuild, and I think that Sabonis would be a great pairing with Luka. The way Sabonis is a great playmaker at the 5 position, he's also the leading rebounder, so that's good offensive rebounds for Luka. You could pop back out to him. Good second chance points, good it's second chance 3-pointers. So, and I think with Sabonis showing that he does pass the ball, it'd be good. Especially with the ball dominant players such as Luka, and even with the ball dominant point. I do want to expand on that as well, because I think LeBron is still take most of the playmaking opportunities. I think Luka is going to give him that superiority. We saw how much he respected Kobe Bryant. I definitely think he respects LeBron James. Probably the same. And I think that alone is going to make them have a great relationship when they finally start to perform on the floor together. I was watching their game the other night when they were playing the Clippers, and watching LeBron go to the bench and sit next to, just seeing them together, actually playing together, is honestly crazy, because we know that Luka, if you fast forward 10 to 15 years from now, he'll definitely be revered. God forbid he get injured, he'll be revered as a legendary player. And the fact he went on to join a legendary franchise which has had so many generational players like Kareem, Magic Johnson, all these players, Kobe Bryant, generational talents, not just superstars, but truly once in a lifetime generational talents, all those players. And now LeBron James is a part of that list, and now Luka Doncic is a part of that list. But like we mentioned earlier, we did talk about De'Aaron Fox getting traded to the San Antonio Spurs. It was a part of a 3-team trade that featured Zach LaVine also going to the Sacramento Kings, and Kevin Huerter went to the Chicago Bulls, also with Trey Jones and Zach Collins, with 3 first-round picks. I'm sorry.
Former Hawk.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I still miss Red Velvet. It still hurts that we traded him. I still think he'd be a good piece for Trey. He'd still be a good piece for Trey right now. That's what they used to call him at the State Farm Arena, Red Velvet, and stuff like his hair and stuff like that, for sure. Great shooter, even now, still, in my opinion. And they got Trey Jones as well, like I said, with 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. So We know Brian Wright, the GM of the Spurs, is always working. Up there with Sam Presti, in my opinion, for GMs. I think he's a great GM, in my opinion. But of course, we got to peel this trade back in layers. Going to start out with the San Antonio Spurs. The most exciting part about the trade, in my opinion, pairing De'Aaron Fox with Victor Wembanyama, the soon to be. Yeah, Nick, I want to start out with you. How do you expect De'Aaron to impact Victor Wembanyama on the San Antonio Spurs? He's coming in at 27 years old. He's a one-time All-Star, but we know he's definitely capable of being a perennial All-Star. It's just the West is super stacked, and De'Aaron's still kind of young. So how do you think they're gonna pair in the future, and how do you think De'Aaron will mesh with Victor Wembanyama in the San Antonio Spurs?
I think it'll be great, honestly. I like the move of the Spurs acquiring De'Aaron Fox, but I think it's also an indication of, they want to do their best. The Spurs I'm talking about, they want to do their best as far as, putting Wemby in a good position where he can get into the playoffs like right now. I mean, I know that he's very young. I think he's only like, 20, 21, 22 years old, something like that. So even though he still has a lot of years ahead of him, but when you look at the type of season that Wemby is having and how he's been able to really lead the Spurs, you want to do what's best to put him in a good position now. When De'Aaron Fox, I know that he's only been to one playoff appearance in 2023, but De'Aaron Fox has proven to be one of the more elite point guards. I mean, he's obviously electric. He's very quick, but he's also a very dynamic scorer and playmaker. So, and I think now in this situation now, especially with him not being the franchise cornerstone or the number one option, I think that he can definitely depend more on his playmaking more, especially, with him being able to connect with Victor Wembanyama off the top, off of the pick and roll. Obviously Wemby's an elite lob threat. So I think him, playing second option right next to Victor Wembanyama will obviously open up a lot of opportunities for him as well on the offensive end. But I like the move, honestly. I mean, it definitely shows that the Spurs are moving in a much different direction. It's just unfortunate to see how much has transpired in Sacramento over these past couple months. I mean, obviously them, firing Mike Brown. Then of course now, yeah. I mean, and then on top of that, this De'Aaron Fox trade. But aside from that, I mean, it's a good beginning for a guy like De'Aaron Fox, honestly. I really think that he's going to thrive in San Antonio. And I think maybe the next year or so, I think they're definitely going to elevate themselves as true playoff contenders in the West.
And De'Aaron had 24 points and 13 assists in his debut. It was a 126-125 win over the Atlanta Hawks, unfortunately. I was at that game last night. It came down to Victor Wembanyama hitting a game-winning free throw after a foul from Onyeka Okongwu, who also had 31 points and 11 rebounds that game, his new career high. Got to show some love to Onyeka for cracking that milestone, most definitely. But yeah, like Nick said, I am excited to see De'Aaron with Wemby. It's good that they really made this win now move, but it also helps them in the future as well. With De'Aaron being 27 years old, I think he'll only continue to get better. His birthday's in December 20th to be exact. So he just turned 27. So he's just now hitting his prime, and it's cool to see him still be young enough to have another era on another team like that. And I think by 30, 31, we'll really start to seem like the best De'Aaron Fox. I don't think he'll slow down with his agility. I think he'll only get stronger, and that'll only help him absorbing more contact when getting to the rim with his speed. And I think with a player like that who already draws in, like he already has so much defensive gravity himself, having that with Wemby, who can do pick and pops because he can shoot threes, like pick and rolls, and he's too tall, like to try to stop a layup, stop a dunk, like how we saw last night. I think it's going to be a nightmare matchup for a lot of teams, and they got exactly what they wanted. Obviously, they drafted Stephon Castle with the 4th pick in the draft last summer, but that's more of a developmental piece, and they also have Chris Paul, but he's pushing 40. Love CP3 though, the future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest point guards, the point god, one of the greatest point guards of all time, absolutely. But we know that they needed a young star to be there with their running man, and they got him. I do think he's gonna sign an extension when the time comes, and I think he's going to make San Antonio his home. His girl is from San Antonio, so he does have some family over there with some family ties and stuff like that. So it's going to be exciting to see like the pair they really form, especially come playoff time. I think if they make the play, like if they're in the play and stuff like that, I do think they will win their game. And whatever team they play, I think they're going to be really, really scared to play in a 7-game series, having to play that 7'5" monster down low in a 7-game series. And I'm really excited to see Wemby in that kind of situation, in that circumstance, having to deal with that pressure as a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old now, just turned his birthday's on January the 4th. That's my older brother's birthday. That's pretty crazy. But Wiley, of course, I wanted your opinion on this as well. How do you think Victor will pair with De'Aaron? Do you think like they'll really have like a good window like that? So like when like De'Aaron is like 30, Wemby's only gonna be 24, and like obviously like I don't like I mentioned I don't think De'Aaron's gonna fall off anytime soon. So maybe like 33, 34, somewhere around there, and that's like a like 7-8 years from now. So like, how do you think he's going to look around that time? And how do you think he pairs with Wemby for the future?
I think it'll be a great fit. I was already high on Stephon Castle being running the point, and with this year being his rookie year and being under Chris Paul's wing, but now you bring in De'Aaron Fox, and now you have a 1-2 punch with the guards, and then you include Wemby. Like that's a good setup, because now they can get out and run the floor. They can run the floor however they feel, however they see fit, and either guard can bring the ball down the floor, and it's literally as you're going, boom, everybody hit their lane. You got Wemby on one side, you got De'Aaron Fox on the other, or vice versa with Stephon Castle. And I mean, I like the look. I kind of got excited seeing De'Aaron Fox go to San Antonio. Didn't necessarily think it was needed, but I mean, it's a perfect move, especially when you're trying to build around your franchise player in Wemby. I mean, it just remains to be seen what happens like after Chris Paul retires, or whatever the hell he's going to end up doing, because he may find a way to end up getting another 1 year deal for
he wants 30. A championship.
What's that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, like he wants a championship. Sorry to even cut you off. Like I'm just putting those 2 cents in. Like that's what. Like to see him still out here at 39, like with his resume, knowing he's a future Hall, like that's like that elusive ring. That is the only thing keeping him at this point.
I put him in that category with LeBron, KD, and Steph. Well, Steph is kind of teetering in there, but LeBron and KD and Chris Paul, y'all the old dudes in the club. The lights is on, and y'all don't want to go home. At this point, it's time to go home. Y'all don't have anything left to do in the league. Like y'all have done it. Y'all have done everything that y'all needed to do. Your legacies have been sealed for at least 5 years. Especially for LeBron. Actually, all 3 of them: LeBron, KD, and Steph too. If you want to throw them in there, like all of them could have retired within the past 5 years, and their legacies were set.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are Hall of Famers. So it's like, why? I know it's for the love. They'll say it's for the love of the game. It has to be something else, because if I know if I'm LeBron, I'll be 43 in March. LeBron is 40. I already know as soon as LeBron, like, once he stops, like, he's going to feel it, because of the fact that he has so much mileage on him. Just from the time that he stepped on the court, even before then, playing in high school. But as soon as he got to the pros, like, he's been on go mode, and especially once he started making the playoffs and having those deep runs, like that's so much wear and tear on his body.
And people don't realize too, like, he had 8 straight finals, so he went from October to June for 8 straight years. And then only had like 2-3 months off.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then not to mention the Olympic years.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then you see it. We've seen it several times with Chris Paul, where he can't even, half the time he couldn't make it through the playoffs because he's getting hurt. Right. So to bring it back, to bring in De'Aaron Fox and to pair him with Wemby, like, that's the perfect 1-2 punch. And like I said, being high on Stephon Castle, like, that's like the icing on the cake to me. And then it's just, what do you put around them afterwards?
And like that's what I feel too. And like we know how like a mature of a player that De'Aaron Fox is, so he's gonna come in right away and mesh with that young core, and he'll be a good veteran himself. Like a few years from now when he's 30, and like he still has all these young players under him. Like I said, Wemby's only gonna be 24, so I think that like they're like that pairing is gonna be truly special. And if they can really make some deep playoff runs, like and like probably like by 2027, if they can be like a strong playoff contender, like at least a fifth seed, fourth seed every year, they're going to be extremely exciting. Like they're going to have like, so many televised games. Like it's truly hard to express. But of course, moving on further into the trade, the second biggest part of that, in my opinion, was of course, Zach LaVine, the two-time All-Star. After 8 years in Chicago, I forgot he was there for that long. Almost 10 years, he was wearing the red and black.
That Butler trade that sent him to Minnesota.
Yeah,
yep. He leaves Chicago, averaging 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists after 8 years with the franchise. Like I said, he was two-time All-Star representing the Chicago Bulls. Really hit a new level while playing for the team. It was really cool to see him really take that next star leap, especially after his infamous dunk contest with Eric Gordon back in 2015. It would have been cool to see him and Lonzo really have like their backcourt pairing, but we know Lonzo was hurt those 2 years and he's back now. He actually just signed a $20 million 2-year extension with the Bulls, so congratulations to Lonzo Ball. And hopefully he can just stay healthy and continue on. He's looking great this year, so I'm really happy for Lonzo. But of course, staying on Zach, how do y'all think he impacts the Sacramento Kings? Like I said, they have Domantas Sabonis. They just fired their head coach, and Mike Brown, who won Coach of the Year recently. So it was pretty surprising to see that happen. But like, how do y'all think they build on this with Zach LaVine moving forward? Starting with you, Nick, where do you think can he take them to the next level? Like, will he pair nice with Domantas Sabonis being a shooting guard instead of a point guard? Like, how do you think their tandem is going to play out?
They'll be cool. Like, to me, like Zach LaVine's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually a fan of Zach LaVine, but I don't know if he necessarily moves the needle as far as elevating Sacramento as one of the top contending teams in the Western Conference. Because I mean, the West is so deep, honestly. And like I said, I mean, Zach LaVine's a great player, but I don't know if he comes off to me as number one option type player. And I think that we saw that even throughout the years in Chicago. It's like, for instance, like when DeRozan and Lonzo both joined the Bulls in 2021, I was expecting them to build the team around Zach LaVine. He was a young player. He had just became an all-star. I was thinking, you know what? Like, this is the perfect time to really build around him, especially with him being in his like early mid-20s. But then you saw that year DeRozan was the top option. He was the MVP candidate throughout that year. So like I said, I mean, Zach LaVine, don't get me wrong, I mean, he's still a great player, and he's definitely like your go-to scorer, especially down the stretch. But as far as like, building the team around him and allowing him to be the number one option, I'm not necessarily sure about that. Now, like, he could definitely be a great 2 or 3 option, but I'm not all for him being a number one option. But honestly, I mean, look, I mean, he's reunited with DeRozan. I mean, both of those guys, they seem to have really loved playing next to each other. So now they got the opportunity again. And then, as far as Sabonis being the number one option, maybe so. I mean, especially with how talented he really is. I still question his effort on the defensive side of things, but offensively, you can't deny how gifted of an all-around player that he is on the end of the floor. I just have to see how it really pans out on the court, honestly. I mean, obviously, when you look at this roster as a whole, they're good enough to potentially get into the playoffs or even the play-in tournament. But do I believe in them possibly after the first round? I don't know. It just all depends on matchup, honestly. But I still feel like Sacramento may be just a couple pieces away before really implementing themselves as like top contenders in the West.
Right. And LaVine just hit the floor. Last night, actually, he had 13 points, finishing shooting 4 of 13. He shot 0 of 4 from 3, unfortunately, versus the Orlando Magic. But of course, it was his first night in a new uniform. So I definitely think he's going to bounce back. We all know what he's capable of, averaging 24 points a game this season. So I'm really excited to see how he does perform. But how do you feel about it, Wiley? How do you think Zach LaVine's going to do in Sacramento?
Yeah, I'm with Nick, man. He doesn't move the needle enough for me as far as for impact. I mean, of course, we could be proven wrong. Somehow, some way, this may work. But looking at their roster, like who's bringing the ball up? because that's going to be a main issue. Who's going to be your point guard, or who's going to be good enough to be your point guard? Because you're more so shooting guard loaded than you are at point. Um, like you said, they seem to be, him and DeMar seem to be excited as far as being able to play with each other. But also we can't forget the Kings picking up Jonas Valanciunas earlier. So
yes, they did.
that helps with the inside. That helps with the inside. So we may get to see a little bit of an improvement when it comes to Domantas Sabonis. Also, low key forgot that Keegan Murray was still on this team. Not even gonna hold you. For some reason I thought he got traded. I do not know why. Sorry, Keegan. I swear you had been long gone. But with this roster, I mean, again, I look at it from point guard play. I think that's going to be where their main struggle is. It's going to be, all right, who do you put at point? Because did Malik Monk start at point last night? Like, who started at point? Like, what was the lineup? Because
if he's the point guard, then I don't know.
right, that's what you're right.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Also, I do want to make a slight correction right quick. It was Sacramento that actually got the 6 draft picks. They actually got 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. So that part of the deal is amazing for Sacramento. Absolutely, especially that 2025 pick from the Hornets this season. Especially in this draft class, that's dividends for Sacramento building forward. If they don't have a point guard, they're going to take care of that this summer, especially with players like Nolan Traore and stuff like that in the draft. If they can't get a Dylan Harper, I think there's so much talent they could get at the point guard position. So those 3 picks alone, those 3 first-round picks are great. Then they got some 3 second-rounders, I thought those draft picks were excellent for Sacramento. That was honestly my favorite part of the deal was, what it did for their future. I thought that was really beneficial for Sacramento.
Also,
but continue.
Jay Crowder, totally forgot he was on this roster too. Not even gonna hold you.
And I'm really in like.
I was gonna say, outside of when it comes, like I said, Zach LaVine doesn't move the needle. They from shooting guard to their front court, they look fine. Like they look like they'll be okay. Again, who's gonna bring the ball up for you on a consistent basis and be able to get the offense moving for you? These picks, I don't know how they pulled this off. I don't know how they pulled this off on the strength of, this is a lot for De'Aaron Fox. Like, because pretty much this is what this trade is based off of. Yes, there's a third team, but looking at the picks and who got what, I'm like, this was a lot for De'Aaron Fox. And the Kings made out pretty damn good. Oh yeah. Also, real quick, I know we cannot go on without saying this. Shout out to Jay who's over this. We know he's happy. So wanted to give Jay that love because, man, he's been trying to get rid of Zach LaVine for forever.
For every
and like it's crazy.
Right.
Right, for like it's crazy because like you would think that Chicago would get the picks out of that situation by getting all those picks for, because y'all just said y'all weren't really high on Zach LaVine like that, So, I guess the GM had different eyes, I think they really just wanted another star in Sacramento so bad. They really wanted to try to fill the gap of what De'Aaron Fox brings so badly that they were kind of desperate in the move. So does he get a tribute video? De'Aaron leaves the Bulls 8 years after averaging 24, 5 and 5. So he was he was definitely their star player. Like Nick said, I do think they should have built around him. But DeMar DeRozan just exploded at the age of 35 and started and like had an MVP year that season. So we'll see what happens. But of course, we do have to give the Bulls the respect, like my man Wiley says. Shout out to Jay. I absolutely love you, my boy, 100%. They got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Herter, and their own first-round pick back from the Spurs. It's a 2025 first-round pick from San Antonio. It was actually their own pick originally. So, we'll see how Chicago builds from this. Again, they got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and, a good shooter in Kevin Herter, the former Hawk, like Wiley said. So, again, with Chicago, they're just, Chicago, like they got Kobe White. I'm really high on Kobe White. I've always liked him as a player. I think he can take the next, I think he can go to the next level now, especially with Zach LaVine not being on the team anymore. I think his usage rate will only increase, and I think they'll go all in on him this offseason. And, they still have Nikola Vucevic as well, the all-star, you feel me? I still like Vooch, it's just Chicago, like Jay has always attested to. And we'll see what they do. But like Nick, where do you think Chicago goes from here? Like they got Matas Buzelis this last summer, the Chicago native. He's actually in the dunk contest, his rookie year. So it's pretty exciting to see that. But where do you think Chicago goes? And you next, Wiley.
Honestly, I don't even know where they go from here on out. Honestly, what's crazy? I'm actually even surprised that they gave Lonzo an extension. And I mean, it's not because Lonzo's a bad player. Lonzo's a terrific two-way player, honestly, especially, with his playmaking and his defense. But I figure, especially with him missing the past couple of years with injury, I just didn't think that it would happen, honestly. But definitely congrats to Lonzo, most definitely. But I think the best move for Chicago is to just rebuild, honestly. Look to start from point blank range, honestly. Like I said, especially over the past couple of years, they acquire all-star caliber players, great talented players that could potentially build a playoff roster. They ended up making the playoffs for a couple of years, but nothing really came out of it. I mean, you talked about Buzelis. I've been a big fan of Buzelis, even when he was playing for the G League Ignite. So we obviously know the talent that he has. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy to build around, but if it is, it's definitely great as well. But I'll be right. I mean, I think at this point, if you're Chicago, I think the best thing is, just rebuild and just look for the future, honestly.
I was gonna say I wouldn't you blow it up, but where would you start it? And I'm same with you, Nick. Like where do you start? Like who do you build around? Do you try and find somebody in the draft? Do you try and luck up and get a free agent? Which of course that's gonna be hard as hell to do because the Bulls haven't been the Bulls since the 90s.
I think the best way to do it is
Bulls haven't been the Bulls since when they got Derrick Rose. I'll put some respect.
Here's the thing, Wally. Not to cut you off, but when you look at that history, MJ came from the draft, Scotty came from the draft, Rose came from the draft. So you got to do what works.
Yeah, and if we can get out this win now mode and actually try and develop some of these players that come in. Although, yes, to me, if you're in college, like that's where you're supposed to get your development. Like you come in halfway developed, and then once you get to the league, that's when you finish off developing. That way you're able to have a decent career in the league. But the way these guys are coming out, after a lot of them are coming out after 1 year, like they're not a lot of them aren't ready, but then you get these players to a team and they want you to win now. They want you to win now. Some of them are being put in spots that they thought they were ready for and being the number one guy, but you don't have a team. Some of these teams, like even with this Chicago team, like your major vets are gone. Excuse me. Your major vets are gone. So at one point you had DeMar DeRozan, great vet. Probably would have been one of the guys I would have tried to keep. I would have tried to keep and figure it out around him. because I'm like to me he was like he was one of the I guess perfect pieces that you could kind of put a few younger players around and they could feed off of that. Like he's not doing too much. He doesn't do too much on the court. He plays both ends, and you need somebody like that to help guide those younger players. So yeah, and Nick, like you said, if they got to do it, if it's worked from the draft, damn it, go in the draft and find. But you have to be 100% sure that this is the player that you want to be behind, and make sure that you build around this player. Because if you're not putting if you're not going to be 100% with the player that you pick up, then why are you drafting them?
What picks do they have this
and
year?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, they haven't put out the what you call it yet.
Oh, like the exact numbers.
Yeah, they haven't put out the draft lineup as of yet. So
because the only reason why I asked is because if they have like a lottery pick or even like mid first round odds, this draft class is actually pretty talented, honestly. So they could potentially grab somebody who could be a franchise player. Who knows?
But also they need to figure out what their identity. Like, what identity do you want this team to be?
Exactly. And like I told Jay when we were talking about that, I think it was off camera, but I told him that, man, like when they lost Derek like that really set the whole franchise back like a decade, man. Like I feel like Derrick Rose, it wasn't, to me, it's not really a stretch to say that he was a generational talent. He is still the youngest MVP to ever win the award at 22 years old. So I think Derrick Rose was, he was a generational talent that it was a true wish upon a star for Chicago, and to lose a player of that magnitude out of nowhere like that, they really didn't know how to rebound from that. And because it just wasn't in the plans. Like, a lot of people still criticize Tom Thibodeau for that happening. Of course, Tom Thibodeau, the now head coach for the New York Knicks, but we know that Derrick Rose is still receiving a jersey retirement from the Chicago Bulls for winning the MVP award, and for, the little success that he had with Chicago, only because of his injuries. I still think he is a legendary Bull. Of course, one of the greatest players to ever wear to ever wear the jersey for the franchise. And I think no one should ever wear number 1 ever again. And I just wanted to really end on that with Chicago. I feel like that's the only reason why they are in this situation. And Derrick Rose could still be playing right now. Yeah, he'd be in his mid-30s, but he'd just still be like a veteran guard, a future Hall of Famer. Some might still say that Derrick Rose is still a future Hall of Famer with his resume, but right now in Chicago, like Nick said, I agree with what both of you said. I think they're gonna have to probably maybe get a sneak, a steal, like a top 10 steal. Because like I said, they did get their own first round pick back from the Spurs. And Chicago's not looking too hot this season. So I do think they will have a relatively high pick in the lottery. Probably, if I had to guess, from 6 to 11, somewhere around there in that range. I don't know if they'll get a top 5 pick. I don't know if they were that bad this season to get one of those. So of course the lottery is anything can happen. The Hawks were the 10th seed last season in the Eastern Conference, and we saw they walked away with the number 1 overall pick. So we'll see what happens with Chicago. But of course, mentioning Chicago, we know that Jimmy Butler, the former Bull, has been traded to the Golden State Warriors after multiple reports of it not happening. And he even doubled down, and he signed a $121 million extension over 2 years at 35 years old, which some people thought he would not receive at his age. He leaves Miami averaging 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Of course, he was not giving his all on the floor at all, and I think we all know that. So I think in a new situation, especially where he just signed an extension and he's playing with Draymond Green and Stephen Curry, I think it's going to be a new breath of fresh air for him. He lives in Los Angeles, so he doesn't got to move too far, just going up the way to the Bay, obviously in San Francisco. So I'm excited to see this new situation for Jimmy Butler. He got what he wanted. Miami pulled the trigger. Eric Spoelstra let him go. It's the Tyler Hero era in Miami now. So Nick, how'd you feel about the Jimmy Butler acquisition, and how do you think he affects Golden State with Stephen Curry being 36 years old and Draymond? I think Draymond's 33 now, 34. So how do you think this affects Golden State with what they're building right now?
My first thought is they old as hell. But I'll be real. I think it's honestly nuts to give Jimmy Butler a 2-year extension, if you ask me. And it's not because Jimmy can't play. It's just, I don't know, especially, I mean, with him being 35 years old. Like, I mean, if they want to put Steph in the best position to keep winning, over the next couple of years, honestly, I mean, I feel like they could have went younger. But I mean, look, Jimmy was phenomenal. And regardless of how things ended in Miami, look, I mean, Jimmy, if you ask me, he's still one of the top 5 greatest players in Miami Heat history. Being able to lead that team to 2 NBA finals, especially when they were underdogs, especially in 2023 when they were the 8th seed. So I know that things ended on a bad note, but when you look at the overview of Jimmy Butler's career, I mean, he did a lot for Miami, honestly. Yeah. And now, I mean, look, and Jimmy is still such a phenomenal all-around player. I mean, not even just as an offensive scorer and as a defensive player, but his playmaking and his rebounding can definitely affect the game, honestly. And I think that we could find a lot of connections with him and Steph, especially considering that Steph is so great off the ball with his movement and everything. So I think that especially with how talented Jimmy is, that could definitely open up a lot of opportunities for guys like Steph and for other guys on the floor as well. So I think that it could definitely work, even though they are up there in age, honestly. But I still question it. I still question how they can compete with the other contending teams, like in the West, like the OKCs or the Denvers or the Houstons, honestly. So obviously, when you look at the talent, with Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, and other guys, obviously, like when you look at it from a paper standpoint, they can't compete. But I just want to see how they can compete with the top contenders in the Western Conference first before I really put them in that pedestal as far as a team that could really have a high chance of going deep in the playoffs.
And Wiley?
I don't know how to feel about this trade, man. The trade, I was in the middle of recording yesterday when this trade happened, and I was just like, because I could have swore Jimmy said he didn't want to go to Golden State, or was I tripping?
I know that it was Memphis he didn't want to go to. I know he really wanted to go to Phoenix. But they weren't able to pull that off.
Yeah, I know it, but I thought he had posted something or said something in reference to not wanting to go to the Warriors, but yet here we are. Yeah, giving him that 2-year deal is nuts, especially at the age of 35. Like him, Steph will be able to play a little bit longer just because of his game style, his gameplay. But both Jimmy and Draymond, for that matter, like 2 years. I feel like 2 years is going to be a stretch for them. It's going to be a stretch, and hell, with both Jimmy and Draymond together, Lord knows only what's going to happen on this court. How much shit talking is going. Like, who's going to calm down?
The court, the practices. What is that going to look like?
Oh, I want to be a fly on the wall for the practice, but who's going to calm down who? Because we already see Draymond doing Draymond shit. Although Draymond is the reason why Golden State looks the way it looks. There, I said it. I put this on Draymond just on the strength of possible ego. Yeah, well, we're not even gonna say possible. Definitely ego, especially after winning. After Golden State being able to win the amount of championships that they won, and Draymond being the type of player that he was at the time, like he was like the top a top defensive player, which great, but also we know the real reason why this train moves the way it moves. Yes, you're a very important piece because you're pretty much you're the heartbeat of the team. But we know when it comes push to shove, we know why Golden State is who they are, and it was because of both Steph and Clay at that time, and you helped manage keep shit in the road for the entire team. And you seem to have lost that the more y'all kept winning. And that was even after y'all got KD and y'all won 2 championships. So and to hear the news about KD not wanting to come back, hey, I get it. Also, Kendrick Perkins, shut up. Please.
Yes.
Please shut the hell up. My God, that Joker said he was the leader of that damn of that Thunder team, and dog, I was hot. I was like, you can't. I was like, you cannot sit here and be like you were the leader of that team. Like that team was doing fine before you got there. As far if anybody, Nick Collison was the damn leader of that team. He had been there.
They retired his jersey.
Exactly. If anybody was the leader of that team, it was him. So, but back to Jimmy Butler. Jazzy, I agree. Hey, you didn't got your money. You know, you got out of Miami. You got your money. At this point, shut the hell up. Go play ball. That's it. As far as this roster looks, my God, I don't know what Golden State's going to do. They're going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat if they want to compete for the rest of the season. It's either that or you kind of mail this in a little bit and get ready for next season. But we know that they want to try and compete. We'll see what happens. We know Jimmy Butler is going to get out there and be the shiny new toy. He's going to go and do the exact same thing that he did to every team that he got traded to. He's going to go out there, and that's anybody that gets any new job. You're going to be the model employee when you get there, and then eventually that shit's going to wear off. So we'll see him do his thing for a little bit. Eventually it'll wear off. Luckily it's right around the All-Star game, so you get a little bit of break. You can't really get much time to practice. Well, no, you'll get a little bit of time to practice with Steph a little bit. You can practice with the rest of the team because they ain't going to the All-Star game. They ain't in the All-Star game, so try and gel as much as you can, figure it out on the fly, and see what happens from here.
And yeah, and like it was just like they can really only try their best with what they have. Honestly, it was such a drama-filled situation, such a peculiar circumstance that they have no choice but to just pick up the scraps and keep moving. At this point, they got an additional star now, which was what they definitely wanted, especially after losing Klay Thompson the way that they did. They got to replace a little bit of that with Jimmy Butler. But we'll see how he performs this year. Like I said, he was still a good player, especially in last season. I think with a new situation like this in Golden State, especially playing with Curry, I think it's going to light a fire under him and like in those practices and stuff like that. And they paid him, so I definitely think he's satisfied. Like Wiley said, I think he'll just go and play basketball now. I don't think it'll be any of that anymore. He lost $3 million while sitting on the bench, not playing, while he was suspended indefinitely by the Miami Heat. So I'm excited for Jimmy Butler. I'm intrigued to see how the team looks. And like how we all know, this trade was also massive. We know that Dennis Schroeder was on the Warriors. He was sent to the Pistons. Really happy he's finally on a team now. It's truly unfortunate. I would have liked to see Dennis Schroeder just took that $84 million from Rob Pelinka when it was offered to him. But to see like him bounce around like this, the former Atlanta Hawk, Dennis Schroeder, we drafted him number 17. It's unfortunate, but at least he's found a home. Detroit did say that they do indeed to keep him as a backup point guard, a good veteran for the locker room. So I'm happy for Dennis. PJ Tucker was sent back to Miami. So we'll see how much longer PJ Tucker can sit in the league. Like I think he's still a good defensive, scrappy veteran. I like PJ, of course, the former NBA champion. And Lindy Waters went from Golden State to Detroit, and Josh Richardson went from Detroit. Went to Detroit from Miami. So this was a monumental trade. It was a crazy trade, most definitely. But how do y'all think these players fare in all their situations, like Dennis in Detroit? And y'all can just give your 2 cents on how do y'all think these players are going to fare?
I actually like Dennis in Detroit, although Dennis Schroeder being traded 4 times within 24 hours is diabolical. Him landing in
He came out and said it's like modern slavery.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was just like, I wish you wouldn't have said that, but go off. But him landing in Detroit, I actually like it. Shout out to one of the followers of the Best Damn Show and one of our moderators for the live chats, Tom. He asked about Dennis Schroeder earlier on Twitter, and we let him. Hey, he's solid. He's a solid guard for you. Like him and Cade should work. We know we've seen him play. Like we've seen him play. We've seen him be productive. I said the best part is the Pistons are actually winning games, and they're actually in contention to at the very least be a play-in team. So that should give him a little bit of a boost to want to help, want to play for this team and help them try and get to the playoffs. But like I said, I like him landing there. Definitely a piece that Detroit can use now and moving forward to help Cade and everybody else that they have. I'm trying to look. Yeah, I saw KJ Martin's in with the Jazz. With all the other trades, I at one point I just started getting confused because people kept getting, it was like multiple trades and people kept leaving one team and going to the next. So trying to figure out who landed where in the end, because I definitely had Dennis Schroeder with the Jazz, and then like an hour or two later he's in Detroit. So I was like, okay, well, where did he actually end up? Like who ended up where for the most part? We haven't gotten to the Heat yet, so I'll save my comments on that.
No, it's fine because I'm trying to see because PJ Tucker was traded multiple times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Throughout the day. So I'm really trying to see what team did he say in Toronto. Yeah, Miami traded Tucker, to the Raptors. Yeah, okay, yeah, so, for Davion Mitchell. So yeah, he's on the Raptors. That's where he is. I'm sorry, a lot of guys in a lot of places. I'm sorry. You said what?
You said for Damian Mitchell?
Yeah. Davion Mitchell.
So he's in Miami.
It says right here from ESPN. Miami traded PJ Tucker.
I actually like him as a player. I think he might be a solid fit for Miami, depending on, I don't know what they're doing with this roster, but might be a good pickup to add with what they got from Golden State as well.
I agree. A good backup point guard behind Tyler Hero. We know what Off Night can do on the defensive end. So I'm really excited to see his new role down in Miami. And PJ Tucker up in Toronto. Sorry I got that wrong. It was so much to that trade. He is on the Raptors. And Davion Mitchell was sent to the Heat, and Dennis Schroeder is in Detroit. I'm really excited for Dennis Schroeder. Like I said, how do you feel about Dennis Schroeder in Detroit, Nick, and PJ Tucker in Toronto? He's 39 years old now, so we'll see how much PJ really has in the league. His birthday's on May 5th, so he's pushing 40. So how much longer do you think PJ has, and how do you think Dennis does in Detroit in his new role after getting bounced around so much?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, it's good that teams have veteran players, like Dennis Schroeder and like PJ Tucker, especially considering that the NBA has wanted to translate them more so becoming younger. And I think what a lot of teams are missing a veteran presence, guys who have been former champions or guys who have been like 15 plus years in the league to help guide the young guys and help them figure out what it takes to be professionals and what it takes to win at a high level. So, getting guys like a guy like Dennis Schroeder, who's a very well-respected vet in this league, especially like going to a team like Detroit, who is on a come up, especially with the type of season that Cade Cunningham is having. I think it's good, honestly. I would love to see him in lineups next to Cade. I think that he can do well. And then, of course, with the other guys as well. So I'm really excited to see, what he can do in Detroit. As far as PJ Tucker, I like the move as well. I mean, that's another young team in Toronto, and they also just acquired Brandon Ingram as well. Obviously, this team is not by any means, but at the end of the day, I mean, I love it, honestly. I mean, so these veterans, going to these young teams and helping them figure out how to win, honestly, I think that's gonna be dope. So whether PJ stays long term or whether he just stays just for the rest of the season, I think that it could be very beneficial for the young guys in Toronto. So I'm a fan of it as well.
Exactly. Me and you both. Like, I really like this move for RJ Barrett. He's averaging 22 points a game this year with 6 rebounds and 6 assists. So I think he's having a breakout year at 24 years old. Will turn 25 this summer, but I think his future is extremely bright, especially playing at home. I was really surprised when the Knicks traded Barrett. I'm not gonna lie, but I think he'll turn into a star up in the Great White North. But what's your summary of all these trades, Wiley? Like, how do you feel about Dennis in Detroit? And I know you said you're high on Davion Mitchell going to Miami.
I like. I mean, as confusing as it was, I like a lot of these trades as far as like where people landed. Completely forgot about Brandon Ingram going to the Raptors. So, and part of it's going to be does he resign there? So I think if he resigns there, Toronto might be on to something because they still have Emmanuel Quickly. Like you said, they have RJ Barrett, Grady Dick is there. So they have a good mixture of young players and vets, to include PJ Tucker. Shout out to Garrett Temple. Keep getting them checks, big guy. I feel like he's been in the league forever, especially in Toronto, of all places. But the main team that we have not talked about, which is the Miami Heat, with them getting Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson.
Yep.
And they got a protected for 2025 first round pick. Like, looking at their roster, they actually don't look bad at all. Now, where do you go from here? Because of like they're a middle of the road team right now. They're just above 500. So what's your pretty much is going to be, again, what's your identity? What's your identity going to be? Of course, we know they love to talk about Heat culture and all that great stuff, but like, I think they need to create a new identity. It can be somewhat of Heat culture, but people, former players are starting to talk, and this whole Heat culture portion is just more so Pat Riley thing, more than anything. So, and again, with the roster that they have, the roster looks. They have They have pretty much a fairly young. I don't want to say very young, but a fairly young roster for the most part. A lot of their guys are like middle age. So, like, we'll say, if it's not, hell, you barely have anybody mid-20s outside of Tyler Hero, who's 25. So they're either upper 20s or in their 30s, like lower to mid 30s. So you have an actual you have a squad, to me, that has enough veteran presence, just enough veteran presence, especially when you're bringing in Andrew Wiggins, who has been in the league long enough to help guide the younger players, but then also make an impact, especially from a defensive standpoint. So I'm interested to see how that works out with him coming over. Kyle Anderson, we didn't get to see much of him in Golden State, so hopefully that changes for him going down to the Heat.
It's a new era in South Beach. I think you're on mute.
Oh yeah, your mic.
Yeah, man. And again, like, for Miami, them getting Andrew Wiggins, seriously, like, the former NBA champion, I am excited in this new opportunity. Oh, am I?
No, you're good. No,
Mhm.
you muted.
And can y'all hear me?
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I'm lagging. Okay, cool. I'm sorry. I know. Again, we saw Andrew get traded. I'm extremely surprised to see Golden State let go of Andrew. I thought he'd be there for the future. Either way, like we'll see how it goes. He got a ring out of Golden State, so he accomplished his mission. Outside of that, though, like Wiley, a better role with South Beach, like Nick said, absolutely. And outside of that, all the trades, in my opinion, really benefited all the respective old Golden State Fairs. It's really sad to see all these players really hit their mid-30s. Of course, Father Time is undefeated, but all three of those players in Golden State are all future Hall of Famers. Of course, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Stephen Curry. So regardless of whatever, I think this is just them still trying to maximize the ability of Stephen Curry. They know he is getting older and his numbers are dropping down this season. So like they're still trying to get as much star talent as they can to maximize the ability of Curry. But as we move on to our last set of trades this evening, just want to thank y'all again for joining us. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Uncommon Commentators podcast. Again, please excuse my technical difficulties, by the way. I had some Wi-Fi issues tonight, so I really appreciate y'all for thugging it out with me. Absolutely. And for the last and final topic for tonight, a fairly polarizing one. I know my main man Nick didn't like this trade at all by the Atlanta Hawks, but we're gonna start out with the Hawks trading DeAndre Hunter. This made headlines. He's having a crazy season as a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. After 5 years of fairly inconsistencies, mainly due to injury for Hunter, he was finally having that season where he was blossoming as a true six-man candidate, averaging 20 points off the bench at one point. Just like at one point, it was like 15 straight games of like 15 plus points off the bench, which is extremely hard to do. So obviously, a lot of people didn't expect this. I'll be quite honest. I did not expect this. I'll just go ahead and give my reaction to it. I think they did this mainly because they wanted to choose between either Dyson Daniels or DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter is on a $95 million contract. And I don't know if the Hawks, particularly Tony Ressler, I don't think he was trying to pay the luxury tax in the slightest. We know most Atlanta teams have a reputation of doing that. So for this in particular, I think it was a matter of that they know how much Dyson is going to command, especially having the season that Dyson Daniels is having on the defensive end. I think Dyson is going to command at least up to $100 million, at least that. So he would be more than DeAndre Hunter's contract was originally. So I wish DeAndre Hunter nothing but the best in Cleveland. It makes Cleveland even more dangerous, way more dangerous than they were already. So adding someone like that with his scoring and his defense off the bench. So Nick, how did you feel about Cleveland adding DeAndre Hunter to the roster? And Wiley, of course, you can go second.
It's a big upgrade for Cleveland. I mean, DeAndre Hunter is a guy honestly, I'll be real and say that this is his career year, and I think that we've been waiting for DeAndre Hunter to unleash, especially over these past couple of years. I mean, he had a really good college career at Virginia, and a lot of people had expected him to become an all-star caliber player, but we just haven't seen that. I mean, it hasn't been the worst of times for DeAndre during the time in Atlanta because I mean, he did have moments where he would have like a 30-point game here and there, but then he'll follow that up with like maybe like a 7 or 8-point game. So it was just that inconsistency from DeAndre Hunter. He was projected to be the second or third option behind Trae Young, during those times in Atlanta. But for him to be able to unleash this year, especially be a 6-man of the year candidate, honestly, it's just been really impressive to see. So honestly, as I'm looking at this whole thing for Atlanta, I really don't know what they're doing. I mean, obviously, trading away DeAndre was one thing, but then of course, you get rid of Bogdanovich, you send him to the Clippers. I mean, those are two quality offensive players, especially with DeAndre Hunter and what he's been able to produce this year for Atlanta. But it just seems to me like they definitely want to go into a new direction. And look, I mean, they still have tremendous young players. Like I mean, even like Antoine mentioned, Dyson Daniels has proven to be a high caliber player, especially, on the offensive end. So, and then of course, you do want to also unlock Zachary Richichet as well, who is the number one pick, who was their number one pick, and who has also had a pretty good year. And honestly, I mean, Ricochet is very talented, so that's a guy that you definitely have to utilize a lot more if you are Quinn Snyder. So I guess I understand it from that perspective. It's just unfortunate because I still feel like Atlanta could be in a position to where they can be playoff contenders, and I feel like if you are going to be that, then you definitely have to have the right pieces around you in order to continue to ascend as a playoff contender in the Eastern Conference. And I felt like DeAndre Hunter was definitely one of those pivotal pieces, especially with the year that especially with the year that he's been having, honestly. So we look at it from Cleveland's perspective. Obviously, a great upgrade. You pair DeAndre next to the likes of Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and others. So obviously, he could be a pivotal piece, especially on the offensive end. But as far as Atlanta's side, what I've been taking away from this trade deadline is it just seems like the team is going in a new direction. Honestly, I don't know exactly what that is, but I think we'll see more changes in the future as well. Honestly, so I think we'll just have to stay tuned.
Yeah, I agree with you because like you said, when seeing that headline, it was like, man, I could have swore I'm like, I'm not big when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks as far as like who's on the team and things of that nature and how they're doing. Of course, look with Antoine and Garrett, being the Atlanta natives and being able to bring me up to snuff with the Hawks, man, it's always appreciated. But I did know about DeAndre Hunter and how well he was in college, and then coming to Atlanta, and hell, I thought he was going to be one of those key pieces alongside with Trae Young to help get the Hawks to where they needed to be and be a consistent contender in the East. But then, like you said, to see the headline, and then not only to see the headline, but to see where he goes, being the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's just like the rich gets richer. They're already doing well in killing it throughout the season thus far, and then they get this piece here. They get DeAndre Hunter, and you lose Levert, you lose Niang and a couple of picks, but in the grand scheme of things, to me, it's worth it. It's worth it the way that you guys are the way that the Cavs are playing. So, I mean, hell, kudos to the Cavs for getting this done, or getting this trade done. For the Hawks, it's you kind of mentioned what direction you think that they're going, Antoine. So we'll see how that works out for them, because of the fact that people have to get paid. People got to get paid, and of course, this is a business. So trying to remain under the luxury tax is always going to be a owner, a GM and owner's top priority for them. It outside of making sure that they have a team that can compete. So we'll see, man. It was just one of those shocking headlines that came up that you didn't expect. Not to the Luka Anthony Davis Richter scale, but shocking enough.
Of course, absolutely. And we know the Hawks also traded Bogdanovich as well to the Los Angeles Clippers for Bones Highland and Terrence Mann. I think Terrence Mann is going to be a good addition on the perimeter. And we know that the Hawks need a backup point guard with Kobe Buffkin out. So how did you feel about the Bogdan trade, Nick? And of course, Wiley, you can go second.
Like I said, I mean, I thought it was a very questionable move. I mean, look, they did get a guy like Terrence Mann in return. Terrence Mann is a pretty, respected player, Florida State alum, by the way. But I felt like over the past so many years, Bogdanovich was also a big piece. So, like, that's why I'm questioning what direction is Atlanta trying to go in right now. I mean, are you guys necessarily trying to retool as far as being in playoff contention, or are you guys just trying to find ways to just slowly clear the house, honestly? So that's the vibe that I'm trying to get right now is, what direction is Landry Fields trying to go with this team, honestly, because, and look, this roster is still very talented, if you ask me, especially when you're led by Trae Young, but I don't know. It's just like, losing or just trading away key players like that, it just kind of has me in question. So kind of not a
Mhm.
lot to say about the trade, but I'm just really in question to see, what Atlanta does from here on out.
Yeah, same. Bogdanovich was one of those pieces, man, that you didn't think that was going to get, was going anywhere because of the fact of how well. I mean, we've seen him play over the years, and he's actually been solid everywhere he's been. The few spots that he's been. Um, my question is Bones Highland. Like, where has he been? Like, what's the deal with Bones Highland? I know Terrence Mann. I have no questions about. We know what he can do. We've seen it. But Bones Highland came. He was in Denver at one point. Was what seemed to be productive at one point, and then it's like he just kind of fell off the map. At least to me, and one of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, what happened to Bones Highland and like I guess his potential to being a decent NBA player? Because
I wish I had the answer.
because that name popped up, and I was like, wait. At first I thought he was out the league, to be honest. So that was my thing. I was just trying to figure out like Terrence, like I said, Terrence Mann, I understand. Bones Highland, I have no clue, and I'm just trying to figure out what's the deal with him, and then like you said, what's the deal with the Hawks, and what are they trying to do?
Nah, yeah, I could see why you all would say that. Absolutely. And again, I want to appreciate y'all for thugging it out with me through these technical difficulties. These rarely happen for me. But it's our last topic for tonight anyway. But again, obviously the Hawks have made some polarizing moves. I think this was just prioritizing for the future. Jalen Johnson has been extended, and I think trading Hunter was just to really open up space for Zachary Risache to get more usage. And again, like I said, DeAndre's $95 million contract was definitely a part of that. I think they were trying to get like anyone that really had the most substantial value, they were going to try to seize on that moment. And I think with the way Hunter was playing this season, he definitely skyrocketed in the terms of value and all the GMs. So it wasn't a surprise to me to see Hunter go like that. It was sucked. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it was a good move in the slightest. I don't endorse it at all. And with Bogdanovich, he was having career low shooting numbers this season after dealing with multiple injuries with his knee and stuff like that, like quadricep injuries and things of that nature. And he actually had averaged his career low this year with 10 points per game since his rookie year. That's his career low. So it's like his first rookie year in the league. So I will say I'm surprised Clint Capella is still on the team. But hey, he survived. So happy for Capella. He's obviously still hasn't gotten an extension yet. He has an expiring $22 million contract. So I think the Hawks are really picking who they really want for the future right now, especially as they have to gather the money to pay Trey with another supermax extension after his rookie scale extension is over. So we also know that the Mavericks are going to have to pay Luka that, and we'll see how the Hawks deal with paying Trey that. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see that. Obviously, a lot of eyes have been on Trey for a really long time. Chris Haynes even reported while on TNT earlier this afternoon that De'Aaron Fox and Trey Young were the two suitors for Victor Wembanyama, but they said that De'Aaron Fox really fell into their lap, so they went with Fox instead of Young. And yeah, like again, like for the Hawks, we'll see where they decide to go. Their season really, I don't want to say went down the drain, but took a massive hit when they lost their second best player in Jalen Johnson. He's a massive part of what they do at this moment. And I think outside of that, they're really like as soon as that happened, they just thought, okay, we gotta look towards the future at this point. Who do we want around this team? George Niang and Karis LeVert are both 40% 3-point shooters. So that around Trey Young, who leads the league in assists, that's a recipe for success. We just have to see how it fares on the defensive end. We saw Hunter kind of regress a little bit on defense. I'm not saying that because they traded him. It was literally the truth. We saw him move a little bit slower, and we saw Dyson come in and just like completely like fulfill that role that Hunter was meant to when he came in as a 3-and-D. He was being referred to as baby Kawhi and stuff. So obviously he had a reputation for a really great defender, especially coming out of Virginia, the former NCAA champion, DeAndre Hunter. So
So did you freeze?
Yep, a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I think for the most part. So I don't any other trades as far as because I
I
know there was some last minute.
I'll say I don't think there's any other ones. I mean, we can cover. I think we just about covered everything.
Yeah, I saw the Grizzlies send Marcus Smart to the Wizards. Yeesh.
Oh, did they? I didn't
Yeah.
see that one. Okay,
So that one, so the Wizards got Marcus Smart, Kobe Jones, Alex Lynn, and a first round pick from the Grizzlies, 2025 first round pick. Grizzlies got 2 second-round picks, Marvin Bagley, the third, and Johnny Davis, and the Kings got Jake Larivia, or
What's up, y'all? I'm back for the
now
yeah.
we were discussing some last minute trades that hit before the deadline shut down.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Like like Dalton Connect leaving Los Angeles. That was another big one. That was definitely surprising to me. But again, like like that was all the big trades that we did discuss. Just want to thank y'all again for dealing with helping me go through these technical difficulties. I've never experienced this while doing this show. And I know Wiley's laughing, of course. You definitely gotta laugh to keep from getting upset. So I definitely appreciate y'all for being really patient. This has never happened with me while doing this show, and when I want to address the fans as well. Thank y'all so much. I treat this opportunity with such care, and I take it very, 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 very seriously. And I would never want to jeopardize the sanctity of doing an online show, and like the brands of my friends like Wiley, and my friend Nick as well. So I want to appreciate y'all again for fugging it out with me through this technical difficulty. And I definitely don't plan on this happening ever again. But of course that happens with online shows. Of course, that's what we all know.
I'll be right. I mean, it's out of your control, man. I mean,
Yeah,
don't have to, stress
of
about it.
course.
right. You don't have to,
Nah.
beat yourself up about it, man.
I just wanted to get that point across. Definitely, I appreciate y'all for sure. And that was it for me. We covered all the trades. Like I did say, I am shocked that the Lakers traded Dalton Connect. I thought he'd be there for a really, really long time. They drafted him with the 17th pick out of Tennessee, the former SEC Player of the Year for 2024. And I thought he'd be there for a real long time. I thought he was a draft steal for them. But we'll see what direction they decide to go to with Luka Doncic and Mark Williams. And obviously, they're going to have to get Luka a co-star. It has to happen. He can't do it by himself. So we'll see what direction they decide to go. But as we end the trade deadline on 2025, how did y'all feel about the trade deadline? And what were y'all's final thoughts as we end the show tonight?
Trade deadline was insane. I'll say that. I'm glad that it's finally over, honestly.
Real.
But honestly, I mean, I'm very excited about a lot of these guys' new destination. Obviously, AD and Luka, but then also, like we mentioned, DeAndre's headed to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
De'Aaron Fox is now in San Antonio. Hopefully he can help elevate their team to become a playoff contender. So a lot of notable names, in new uniforms. So I'm really excited to see, what they can do with their next team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same, man. Like I said, I'm definitely excited to see the Spurs and what they turn out to be going forward. Low-key, a little bit, like I said, with Brandon Ingram going to the Raptors, and if he resigns there, and then what possibly they could look like with that team up there. Ready to see the whatever chaos unfolds in Golden State, if any, with Jimmy Butler, and then of course with Miami and the team that they have, and how they move forward, adding those pieces that they added. Again, it's just a bunch of madness and chaos that ensued over the last few days, and like Nick, I'm glad it is over. Now we get Nick. Now we get to finish up with WNBA and all its madness that continues to ensue.
God. I want that to be over too at this point.
Right. I'm so ready for all this to be over because so many people it's so many pieces moving, so many players that are just they're going here, they're going there. And again, at least for the NBA, it's all said and done for now. Of course, they can still sign free agents here and there, but for the most part, with this part right here, with this whole trade deadline, I'm glad it's done. I'm so glad it's done.
I honestly might say though, like with all my years like watching and covering the NBA, this might be one of the more craziest trade deadlines.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's like how we said, it was the first time 2 All NBA players were traded for each other in the middle of the season. So it's not an exaggeration to say that Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, that's one of the top 3 trades in NBA history. Again, like we mentioned on the emergency podcast, that Chris Paul tried to make his way to the Lakers, and we know about the infamous veto during the David Stern era. Rest in peace to David Stern. We love you, absolutely. And yeah, like that shows you like, hey, they made Chris Paul go to the Clippers, and that gave us Lob City. So that changed NBA history, and so did this trade as well. And like what both of y'all said, this was probably the craziest deadline of all time. We have multiple stars team up with other future Hall of Famers, pairings we never thought we would see. I never thought I would ever see Jimmy Butler play with Stephen Curry ever in my life. I thought Jimmy Butler was going to retire with the Miami Heat. I never thought I'd see Luka Doncic play with LeBron James, but we're about to see it
outside of the All-Star game.
Seriously. And as we record this, there are reports that Luka's targeting the game against Utah on Monday. So that's in LA. So that's going to be sold out. Absolutely. And there were I follow other journalists that cover other teams, and like this one dude I follow that covers the Celtics. He said he saw Luka jerseys over in TD Garden, two Laker Luka jerseys. So it's happening already. Again, one of the reasons why they traded
to have some Laker jerseys.
Seriously. And that shows you like, hey, like it's the power of it. But that's all for me on this evening's episode. I just want to say one more time, I appreciate y'all for coming with me through these online errors and things of that nature. It was a blessing to have Nick on this show. Guys, please go subscribe to the Best DMW show. It's an amazing show. They're a world-class production. They've been featured on ESPN multiple times at this point. It's pretty crazy. They honestly are truly a world-class show, and they're only improving, only getting better, like how we all strive to do every single day. They do great coverage. I believe it's every Tuesday at 9:30, Nick, or is it
every Tuesday 9:30 p.m. Eastern, man. Make sure to tap in, man. This upcoming episode should be fun. Wally might be on this time to talk, man. So we excited.
Look, man, I try and produce these shows, man. I just want to do my part as a team player, man. Help make these shows be what they are, and hopefully people around the world see this, man. Also, don't forget to pull up to the live streams for the Unrivaled basketball. For Unrivaled Basketball, Friday, Saturday, and Monday. We're definitely interested with this one-on-one that's coming up, so that's gonna be dope. We did not mention about the NBA All-Star Game, which is coming up. Which is that's next week. They just did the draft, which was more funny more than anything.
Kenny seemed crazy,
man.
He has like 5 guards.
No, for real. And then Shaq with these middle names for everybody. That's what made it funny.
Shaq's even old too.
But yeah, Nick, appreciate you, dog. Sorry my bad for stepping on your toes there, Antoine.
No, you're fine, man. Yo, you did me a solid. You already know you did me a solid. Absolutely not. You never step on my toes, man. You're a great asset to me. You're a great friend of mine. You can never step on my toes, man. I want to appreciate you again, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us on this one. Even through all the irregularities, I really appreciate you for giving it your all, giving great breakdowns like you always do when talking this basketball stuff. And God bless you in your endeavors covering FSU, covering the WNBA, covering this crazy trade deadline, in this upcoming playoff season, which we of course we would definitely love to have you back on the show. Come March Madness, especially the women's college basketball March Madness season. Definitely got to talk about that for sure. Minus the lags, of course. And thank you so much again for joining. Want to give a shout out to my man Wiley on the ones and twos. Always making it a great show. Always making it super comfortable for me and anyone that's on here. Of course, with me and my normal co-host Gary. I want to give a shout out to Gary, who's out of town right now. I absolutely hope you're traveling safe, whether you're driving or you're flying. Hopefully you're safe, man. God bless you always. We love you on this side. I want to give another shout out to Jay Holloway and Raina Holloway as well. Thank y'all so much for this.
Jay, man. Jay is currently covering the Notre Dame game right now, man. So shout out to him, man. He's literally there live at the moment. So shout out to him.
Yes.
Working while y'all are watching. Really appreciate y'all for watching though. Absolutely. Thank y'all so much. God bless every one of you. We promise an even better show next time than this one was, and y'all have a blessed night.
Peace.